The Galactic Council's decision to execute human prisoners of war sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The footage of the cold, clinical killings was broadcast on every channel, a grim spectacle meant to intimidate. The Zorathians, the dominant species within the Council, had orchestrated the tribunal, claiming the executions were necessary to deter human aggression. Earth's diplomats had pleaded for mercy, invoking interstellar laws of war, but their words fell on deaf ears. The Council's vote was unanimous, and the sentence was carried out without delay. The message was clear: humanity was to be put in its place. On Earth, the reaction was immediate and visceral. Protests erupted in every major city, from New York to Shanghai, from Mars Colony to the Outer Rim settlements. The United Earth government declared a day of mourning, but the grief quickly turned to rage. The execution of unarmed POWs was not just an act of war, it was a violation of everything humanity stood for. The streets echoed with chants of justice, and the government, under immense pressure, had no choice but to act. In a historic address, the President of Earth declared all-out war against the Galactic Council. The declaration was met with thunderous applause, but beneath the surface, there was a grim understanding of what lay ahead. Humanity was outmatched in every measurable way. The Galactic Council's technology was centuries ahead, their fleets vast and well-organized. But what the Council failed to understand was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their weapons, but in their spirit. The execution of the POWs had ignited a fire that would not be extinguished. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, repurposing civilian ships into warships, developing new weapons, and refining strategies. Soldiers trained tirelessly, driven by a singular purpose: to ensure that such an atrocity would never happen again. The first strikes were swift and brutal. Human forces targeted key Council outposts, using guerrilla tactics to exploit weaknesses in their defenses. The Council, confident in their superiority, had not anticipated such audacity. Their fleets were caught off guard, their supply lines disrupted. Humanity's unpredictability became their greatest weapon. They struck where they were least expected, disappearing before the Council could mount a counterattack. Each victory, no matter how small, was a blow to the Council's morale and a boost to humanity's resolve. But the war was not just fought on the battlefield. Humanity waged a campaign of psychological warfare, spreading stories of their resilience and the Council's cruelty. Propaganda broadcasts reached every corner of the galaxy, sowing doubt among the Council's member species. The execution of the POWs, once meant to intimidate, became a symbol of the Council's arrogance and inhumanity. Some species began to question their allegiance, while others, long oppressed by the Zorathians, saw an opportunity to ally with humanity. The cracks in the Council's unity were beginning to show. As the war progressed, humanity's ingenuity began to turn the tide. A major victory came when a Zorathian fleet was lured into a trap and decimated. The battle was a testament to human creativity and determination, a stark reminder that they would not be easily defeated. The galaxy took notice. Species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now saw them as a force to be reckoned with. The Council, once so confident in their superiority, began to feel the weight of their mistakes. The war they had thought would be swift and decisive was turning into a protracted struggle, one they were not prepared to win. But humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their tactics, it was their unyielding sense of justice. The execution of the POWs had been a gross violation of their moral code, and they would not rest until those responsible were held accountable. The war was not just about survival. It was about proving that humanity would not be broken, that they would fight for what was right, no matter the cost. The galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest weapon was their refusal to back down in the face of injustice. And as the flames of war spread, it became clear that the Council had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. The declaration of war was not just a statement, it was a call to arms that united humanity like never before. Every colony, every outpost, every shipyard buzzed with activity. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked in unison, driven by a shared purpose. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate under pressure. Within weeks, civilian ships were retrofitted into warships, their hulls reinforced, and their systems upgraded. Factories that once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons and ammunition. The war effort became a testament to human ingenuity and determination. The first strikes were calculated and precise. Human forces targeted key Council outposts, striking at supply lines and communication hubs. The Council, confident in their technological superiority, had not anticipated such audacity. Their fleets were vast, but they were spread thin, guarding countless worlds and resources. Humanity exploited this weakness, launching hit-and-run attacks that left the Council scrambling. Each strike was a message: humanity would not be cowed. They fought not just with weapons, but with creativity, using tactics that the Council's rigid military doctrine could not predict. One such tactic was the use of psychological warfare. Humanity's propaganda broadcasts reached every corner of the galaxy, spreading stories of their resilience and the Council's cruelty. The execution of the POWs, once meant to intimidate, became a rallying cry. The broadcasts were not just for humanity's benefit, they were aimed at the Council's member species. Some began to question their allegiance, horrified by the brutality of the Zorathians. Others, long oppressed by the Council's dominance, saw an opportunity to ally with humanity. The cracks in the Council's unity were beginning to show. Humanity's alliances grew as the war progressed. Species that had once dismissed humans as primitive now saw them as a beacon of hope. The KRYLL, a reptilian species known for their engineering prowess, offered their expertise in exchange for protection. The Velnari, a nomadic race with advanced stealth technology, provided intelligence on Council movements. These alliances bolstered humanity's war effort, but they also deepened the Council's internal divisions. The Zorathians, desperate to maintain control, resorted to increasingly brutal tactics, further alienating their allies. The turning point came during the Battle of Cygnus Prime. A Zorathian fleet, confident in their superior firepower, pursued a small human task force into a seemingly empty sector of space. What they did not know was that the sector was littered with cloaked mines and hidden weapons platforms. As the Zorathian ships entered the trap, the human fleet turned and struck with precision. The battle was a masterclass in strategy and coordination, a stark reminder that humanity's greatest strength was their ability to think outside the box. The Zorathian fleet was decimated, and the victory sent shockwaves through the galaxy. But the war was far from over. The Council, now aware of humanity's growing strength, began to consolidate their forces. They launched counterattacks, targeting human colonies and outposts. The fighting grew fiercer, the stakes higher. Humanity's resilience was tested as never before. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, they refused to back down. Every loss was met with renewed determination, every victory celebrated as proof that they could win. The war also took a toll on the Council. The Zorathians, once the undisputed leaders of the galaxy, found themselves increasingly isolated. Their allies grew wary, their own people questioning the cost of the war. The execution of the POWs, once seen as a necessary measure, now haunted them. The galaxy was beginning to see the Council not as protectors, but as oppressors. Humanity's moral high ground became a weapon in itself, eroding the Council's legitimacy. As the war raged on, humanity's ingenuity continued to shine. They developed new weapons, new strategies, and new ways to fight. But their greatest strength remained their unyielding sense of justice. The execution of the POWs had been a gross violation of their moral code, and they would not rest until those responsible were held accountable. The war was not just about survival. It was about proving that humanity would not be broken, that they would fight for what was right, no matter the cost. The galaxy watched as humanity, once dismissed as a minor player, rose to challenge the might of the Galactic Council. They fought not just with weapons, but with ideas, with unity, with an unbreakable spirit. The Council had thought they could crush humanity, but they had only awakened a sleeping giant. The flames of war burned bright, and in their light, humanity's true strength was revealed. They were not just fighting for their survival, they were fighting for the soul of the galaxy. and they would not stop until justice was served. The Galactic Council's unity began to fracture under the weight of humanity's relentless advance. The execution of the POWs, once a display of dominance, had become a symbol of their cruelty. Species within the Council, long silenced by the Zorathians' iron grip, began to voice their dissent. The KOIL, who had secretly supplied humanity with advanced engineering blueprints, openly condemned the Council's actions. The Velnari, masters of stealth and intelligence, leaked classified Council communications to human forces. The cracks in the Council's foundation grew wider with each passing day. Humanity's alliances expanded as more species saw an opportunity to break free from the Council's oppression. The Korax, a hive-minded species known for their tactical brilliance, joined the fight, offering their strategic expertise. The Lumine, a peaceful race with unparalleled medical technology, provided aid to human colonies ravaged by Council attacks. These alliances were not just military, they were ideological. Humanity's refusal to back down in the face of injustice resonated deeply with those who had suffered under the Council's rule. The war was no longer just humanity's fight, it was a galaxy-wide struggle for freedom. The Zorathians, desperate to maintain control, doubled down on their brutality. They imposed martial law on dissenting species, executing leaders and silencing protests. But their heavy-handed tactics only fueled the rebellion. The Council's once unshakable authority crumbled as more species defected or declared neutrality. The Zorathians found themselves increasingly isolated, their fleets stretched thin and their resources dwindling. The war they had thought would be swift and decisive had become a quagmire, one they were ill-prepared to navigate. Humanity's strategy evolved as the war progressed. They no longer fought just to survive, they fought to dismantle the Council's oppressive regime. Propaganda broadcasts continued to expose the Council's atrocities, turning public opinion against them. Human forces targeted key infrastructure, crippling the Council's ability to wage war. The Zorathians, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with sheer force, struggled to adapt to humanity's unconventional tactics. Every victory, no matter how small, chipped away at the Council's resolve. The turning point came when humanity discovered a hidden Zorathian superweapon, capable of annihilating entire star systems. The weapon, codenamed Eclipse, was a last-ditch effort by the Zorathians to secure victory. But humanity, true to their principles, chose not to use it. Instead, they broadcast its existence to the galaxy, exposing the Zorathians' willingness to resort to genocide. The revelation was a devastating blow to the Council's credibility. Even their staunchest allies began to question their leadership. The Council's internal conflicts reached a boiling point. The KOIL and Velnari, emboldened by humanity's victories, openly rebelled against the Zorathians. The Korax and Lumine provided critical support, turning the tide of the war. The Zorathians, now surrounded by enemies on all sides, were forced to retreat. Their once mighty fleets were reduced to scattered remnants, their colonies left vulnerable. The galaxy watched as the Council's empire crumbled, its leaders scrambling to salvage what little remained. Humanity's moral high ground became their greatest weapon. They offered amnesty to Council species willing to lay down their arms, promising a future built on fairness and mutual respect. The Zorathians, desperate and cornered, had no choice but to agree to peace talks. The negotiations were tense, but humanity's unwavering commitment to justice ensured that the terms were fair. The Council was disbanded, its leaders held accountable for their crimes. The Zorathians, once the galaxy's dominant power, were reduced to a shadow of their former selves. The war's end marked the beginning of a new era. Humanity, though victorious, did not seek to replace the Council as the galaxy's rulers. Instead, they proposed a new coalition, one based on equality and cooperation. The KOIL, Velnari, Korax, and Lumine were among the first to join, their trust in humanity earned through years of shared struggle. The galaxy, once divided by fear and oppression, began to heal. But the scars of war remained. The execution of the POWs, the destruction of colonies, the lives lost, all served as a somber reminder of the cost of hubris. Humanity's victory was not just military, it was moral. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their unyielding spirit. And as the flames of war faded, a new hope emerged, one built on the ashes of the old. The galaxy would never forget the price of freedom, nor the ones who had fought to secure it. The discovery of the Zorathian superweapon, Eclipse, marked a pivotal moment in the war. Hidden deep within a fortified asteroid belt, the weapon was a testament to the Council's desperation. Capable of annihilating entire star systems, it was a tool of absolute destruction, one that could have turned the tide in the Zorathians' favor. But humanity, true to their principles, chose not to wield it. Instead, they exposed its existence to the galaxy, broadcasting the Zorathians' willingness to commit genocide. The revelation shattered the Council's remaining credibility, turning even their staunchest allies against them. The galaxy erupted in outrage. Species that had once tolerated the Council's tyranny now openly rebelled. The HFY and Velnari, emboldened by humanity's victories, launched coordinated attacks on Zorathian strongholds. The Korax and Lumine provided critical support, their combined efforts crippling the Council's ability to fight back. The Zorathians, once the galaxy's dominant power, found themselves surrounded by enemies on all sides. Their fleets, stretched thin and demoralized, began to desert. The Council's empire, built on fear and oppression, crumbled under the weight of its own hubris. Humanity's moral high ground became their greatest weapon. They offered amnesty to any Council species willing to lay down their arms, promising a future built on fairness and mutual respect. The Zorathians, desperate and cornered, had no choice but to agree to peace talks. The negotiations were tense, with the Zorathians clinging to the remnants of their pride. But humanity's unwavering commitment to justice ensured that the terms were fair. The Council was disbanded, its leaders held accountable for their crimes. The Zorathians, once the galaxy's undisputed rulers, were reduced to a shadow of their former selves. The war's end marked the beginning of a new era. Humanity, though victorious, did not seek to replace the Council as the galaxy's rulers. Instead, they proposed a new coalition, one based on equality and cooperation. The HFY, Velnari, Korax, and Lumine were among the first to join, their trust in humanity earned through years of shared struggle. The galaxy, once divided by fear and oppression, began to heal. Trade routes reopened, colonies rebuilt, and species once at odds now worked together toward a common future. But the scars of war remained. The execution of the POWs, the destruction of colonies, the lives lost, all served as a somber reminder of the cost of hubris. Humanity's victory was not just military, it was moral. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology, but their unyielding spirit. Their refusal to compromise their values, even in the darkest moments, had inspired a galaxy to rise against tyranny. The new coalition, known as the Galactic Concord, was a stark contrast to the old Council. Decisions were made through consensus, with every species having an equal voice. Humanity, though respected as leaders, did not seek to dominate. They understood that true strength lay in unity, not control. The Concord's first act was to establish a memorial for those who had fallen in the war, a reminder of the sacrifices made to secure freedom. The execution of the POWs was commemorated as a turning point, a moment that had galvanized the galaxy to fight for what was right. The Zorathians, though defeated, were not forgotten. The Concord offered them a chance to rebuild, to contribute to the galaxy's future. Many accepted, their pride tempered by the lessons of the war. Others, unable to let go of their past, retreated to isolated worlds, their influence fading into obscurity. The galaxy moved forward, but the memory of the war remained, a cautionary tale of the dangers of arrogance and the abuse of power. Humanity's role in the new order was not one of conquest, but of guidance. They shared their technology, their knowledge, and their values, helping to build a galaxy where no species would ever have to suffer under tyranny again. The HFY, Velnari, Korax, and Lumine became close allies, their bonds forged in the crucible of war. Together, they worked to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The war had changed humanity, but it had also changed the galaxy. Species that had once viewed humans as primitive now saw them as a beacon of hope. The execution of the POWs, once a symbol of the Council's cruelty, had become a rallying cry for justice. Humanity's victory was not just their own, it was a victory for every species that had suffered under the Council's rule. The galaxy learned that true power lay not in fear, but in unity, in the willingness to stand together against injustice. As the flames of war faded, a new hope emerged, one built on the ashes of the old. The galaxy would never forget the price of freedom, nor the ones who had fought to secure it. Humanity's legacy was not one of conquest, but of inspiration. They had shown the galaxy that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. And as the stars burned bright in the night sky, they served as a reminder of the unyielding spirit that had brought the galaxy together. The war was over, but the fight for a better future had only just begun.